seconds. Let's let it get going live here. We're going to do that. We're going to fix it up. Facebook was deleted. Wow, Facebook. Thanks, Facebook. Let's remove
Dude,
Facebook
they've been
here.
crazy lately.
Yeah, we're going to get this going back up on Facebook. Everyone hang with us for a moment. We are just getting started. We got some technical issues on the Facebook side. We're going to let that load up here. I don't even know what day it is, man. I mean, we are live. We'll get to that. It's always fun to kind of kibitz. It's a fun little Yiddish word. Kibitz means shoot the shit.
Right on.
For a little bit before we get started here.
Yeah, I'm cool
as
with
we
that.
load up on the old LinkedIn machine,
right,
which is my primary audience here. So you should see that in a second in the all activity feed.
All activity feed. Okay.
Right. So you're going to go to my page. You're going to go
see all activity live with Glenn Lundy.
Boom. There we go.
Boom.
All right, cool. We're loading up there. So you can just hit that share button and we'll get it going here in a minute. We'll let everybody join the party. It's been weird. The numbers have been up and down lately. A little bit oversaturation on the LinkedIn side.
Yeah, it's been weird all the way around, man. I've had, so on my show last week, every one of my shows was over 10,000 views.
Wow.
I had two shows reach 20,000 last week. And then this week, same show, same slot, same everything. I had one show do 25,000. Yesterday's show did 25,000. The rest didn't break 2,000.
That's crazy, man. I want to talk about how you built it up because I'm just getting started with this live streaming thing. I mean, my podcast itself does pretty well. Very happy with that growth. But live streaming is fun to me. And I mean, it really taps into my passion that I've always had because I'm a big Howard Stern fan. And We're talking about modern day Howard Stern, not the porn stars and all the other garbage. But, when he has, right, like he has these interviews with Tom Brady, Hillary Clinton, and they're like 2-hour epic and they're conversations, right? They're not interviews, they're conversations. And he's talking to them human to human. He's not reading off a bullet pointed list. He's not, he's not, sugarcoating anything. It's just a conversation. He really brings out the best in everybody. So we're gearing up here, trying to build up the live show. I get a ton of action on the replays. That's where I see it, man. I mean, people are working during the day. Maybe I should do a 5:30 in the morning show.
Hey, man, I got to tell you that there's zero competition. That was another benefit. So I picked it because it was a time that worked for me. But what I didn't realize is, man, there's zero competition at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So I don't have to worry about anybody else's live streams.
No, not at all. So we're gearing up here, everybody, and let's kick things off. I think it's the 14th, right? Yes, it was the 13th.
Yeah.
So if I know how to count, because I've kind of stopped counting days at this point. I do it by month. We got through March. March was a long year, man. March was a long year. I love that joke. We'll go with it.
I agree.
But welcome, everybody. Today is the 14th day of May in the year 2020. I'm with my man, Glenn Lundy, and we are live on the Podcast Live, the hopefully growing show. I'm trying to pick up audience, pick up speed here. And I'm really doing my job in connecting with as many humans as I can during my quarantine time and using my time wisely to connect and deepen relationships. Glenn and I were introduced to a mutual connection and something pretty cool what we're doing. I'm having Glenn on my show today, and then tomorrow I will be on his Facebook Live show at 5:30 in the morning Eastern time. And my wife said to me, she goes, you know what? I don't care what time you do it. Just don't wake me up. Just do not wake me up. So I got this plan in my head tonight. Like before I go to bed, I'm in my den studio. So we'll be back here tomorrow. I'm going to have everything set up. I'm going to have my coffee almost ready to go. And we're going to get it going here. So let's take a moment here. Glenn, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, no problem. Happy to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and hopefully connect with some other people and add some value into their lives today.
That would be awesome, man. So why don't we just take a moment and quickly introduce yourself to my tribe. Tell everyone kind of who you are and what you do best, my man.
Yeah, man, my name is Glenn Lundy. I'm a husband to 1, a father to 7. I'm a 20-year automotive professional and the host of the wildly popular Facebook Live show, #Rise and Grind. And ultimately, dude, I'm just a dude out here trying to inspire and make a difference in people's lives.
That is awesome, man. And you're in Lexington, Kentucky, correct?
That's right.
So let's do it. Let's do a little pulse check. What's happening on the ground there, man? I mean, listen, this is the 14th day of May. I mean, every state, every city around the country, everyone's experiencing things a little bit differently. I'm here in New York, which is crazy. I mean, our numbers are still relatively high as far as the checklist to reopen, but everywhere around the country is a little bit different. What's happening with you, man? Tell us a little bit of what's happening on the streets.
I wish I could give you a little more answers on that. I stopped watching like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and me and my family we just stopped. So in my business, most of what I do virtually. I do it online. I work with dealers all across the country. And so I have an office. I have one other guy that's in my office with me. Him and I go to work every day. My kids were homeschooled anyway, so there's no difference with the schooling. So our life is very, very similar to what it was before. The only difference is, we can't go out and have any fun. Like I like taking kids to the movies or going out to restaurants, or I like to travel. I love jumping on planes. So I do know that they're starting to unlock some retail establishments. People are starting to be able to open their doors. They, of course, got to follow the social distancing guidelines and all that stuff. Yeah, and you got to wear masks if you're face to face with a customer, that type of thing. But other than that, man, I don't know the counts. I had to get away from it, dude. It was killing me.
I agree too, and I made a point to only check in the news once a day, and the news that I'm checking is more of the factual stuff around, we have a great governor here in New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is, really stepped up as far as leadership, right? And leadership coming down to communication, right? He's communicating what's happening every single day, having a real press conference, talking about the numbers. And that's all I want to check in on. I want to know what's happening with schools. I want to see the numbers going down. I want to know that we're moving in the right direction. I don't need all the editorial bullshit that's happening in the news. Just give me the facts and let me come up with my own opinions. Let's talk a little bit about your business. Let's dig in a little bit. Explain to everyone, what's happening in the auto world, man.
Man, the auto world is crazy, man. They're a bunch of resilient son of a guns. I will tell you that, man. At first, it was like, holy crap, into the world, what's going on? And then everybody started to shift and pivot. So what I've seen from the auto industry is we basically have 4 types of leaders that have come out of this thing. We've got the doomsdayer, who's like, shut the doors, turn off everything, freaking, hiding in the corner, locking freaking everything down. We had the doomsdayers, and then we had the survivors, which was the leader that was like, all right, I'm gonna make sure I'm okay. We're still gonna dip our toe in business just a little bit to make sure I'm okay, but ultimately it's about my survival and nobody else's. And then we had some real underdogs, man. I call them the underdogs. These are the leaders that just went out and were like, we don't care what anybody says. This is what we're going to freaking do. And we're going to freaking crush it and just like breaking glass and doors and just didn't care. And then we have what I call the heroes. And the heroes are the leaders that I've seen across this industry that literally took it all on their shoulders and said, hey, you know what, guys, come with me. You're going to be safe. You're going to be okay. I'm going to take care of you. They paid their people to make sure that their people were paid. They're communicating with their people twice a day via Zooms. They've just done everything where it's like, okay, I'm going to make decisions for you and with your best interest in mind. And so we've seen kind of that whole spectrum of the 4 different types of leaders across the industry. Most markets, most dealers are down about 35% right now in sales overall. We do have some dealers that are doing really well, though, and it really started to turn around the last couple of weeks. Like April was bad.
Had to be.
May seems like we're starting to recover really well.
Good. And that's awesome to hear. I mean, we've seen leadership at every single level of organizations, people really stepping up and shining. And I think that's really what it's all about. Resilience and shining. We're Americans are tough here. We've been through a lot of shit and it's just awesome to see. I mean, I'm not going to get political. I'm not getting into that. So I definitely want to move on. Let's talk. I mean, actually, I want to talk about auto for a little bit too. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of commercials out there where, financing 84 months. I can't even do the math. I mean, how many years is 84 months?
7 years, my man. 7 years.
That's crazy. And is they're still making cars and there's all this inventory. I mean, is now a great time if you're buying or leasing?
Yeah, it's an incredible time. There's actually a very small window where I would express urgency if you're interested in buying a car. Now's a great time, man. The rates are incredibly low. The rebates and incentives are incredibly high. The dealers are definitely focused on moving iron right now. The last thing you want to do in the automotive industry is let your cars sit and age and depreciate on your lot. I mean, you guys got big bills, man. They've got big bills. So they want to turn and make sure they have cash flow as we come out the other side of this. So yeah, incredible opportunity to buy cars. They're starting to run a little bit low on inventory as far as the new cars go, because the manufacturers changed their plants over so that they could make masks and things like that instead
Interesting.
of cars. Yeah, they General Motors, a couple of the other ones. So
That's interesting too. And then we also think about logistics too. I mean, I don't know about GM specifically, but a lot of manufacturers, right? Parts could be assembled overseas in Asia too, and then they bring them back here to assemble. I'm sure that's affecting production across lots of brands.
yeah, big time. We have quite a few boats that are sitting out in the ocean from China that are filled. There's
Oh,
one that
man.
I read about. It's got 2,000 cars, and it had just been sitting out in the ocean for like 8 weeks. So they just let it up. They just let them unload last week, and all these cars. But now there's nowhere for these cars necessarily to go because the auctions are down 85%.
Wow.
So because dealers haven't been buying cars, so auctions are down 85%. There's no real place to store these things. So there's a real backlog. I think we'll move through it fairly quickly, but there's some logistical stuff. Plus, you've got states like Michigan that are still on major lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
And Michigan's a hub for the auto industry. So a lot of parts come out of Michigan, for these different vehicles. So when you start looking down the distribution line, it's going to take us a little while to recover, but things are starting to move in the right direction.
That's awesome. Let's unpack your career a little bit. Have you always been in the auto industry?
Man, I've been in the auto industry for 22 years now.
Your first car sold was a Model T, right? Like,
exactly.
Or some buggy, right? Like, I mean, it's got to be incredible to see what's happened in the last 20 years, right? Like consumer spending and different types of cars and the advent of the popularity of the SUV. I mean, you've kind of seen it all, man, right? But consumer behavior, consumer spending, and all that too. Like, what's something that's really surprised you about the industry over the last couple of years?
Well, I think so I have 2 seasons in the auto industry.
I love it.
Right. So I had my initial season where I worked at a dealership in a small town. We never really grew. The culture wasn't great. It was the get kicked in your teeth, freaking get cussed out every day type of dealership. We worked Monday through Sunday, every other Sunday off. I did that for 7.5 years.
Grinding.
And I hated it. Like I was really good at it. Like really, really good. And I went from sales to finance to salesman. Like I moved up through the ranks because I was good, but I hated the environment that I in my life outside of work was.
You didn't have
awful.
anything, right? You worked 7 days a week.
Yeah, it was awful, man. I lost custody of my 6-year-old child because of that. I lost my relationship because of that, because of me, but ultimately while I was in that season of my life. And so that was my kind of early season. Then I have a season, the back half of my career, the last 10 years now, where I worked at a dealership in Kentucky in a tiny little small town, similar environment or similar setup, but we were actually able to grow it 800% over a period of just under 6 years to take it to the second largest used car franchise dealer in the country. And so the biggest difference and the biggest shocker over the last 20 years, as I've learned more about the automotive industry, it is so surprising to me how many dealers across this country are okay with average or below average performance and continue to just perpetuate the same results. That dealership I worked at 20 years ago is still selling the same amount of cars now that they were 20 years ago. They've never grown, man. And that's rampant across the industry. It's just it's an interesting.
Is it flat or auto sales flat? Generally speaking, is it one of those industries where it's like people are just going to buy the same amount of cars every year? Or, I mean,
what it comes down to is it's for the last 30 years, subtract the year 2008, because that was a crazy year.
And 2020.
Yeah, well, now in 2020.
Let's just wipe this year off, man.
Yeah,
we're gonna go from 2019 to 21. We're just gonna strike this year.
No doubt. But for the last 30 years, it's been easy, dude. Open a dealership, have some shiny cars, put it in a great location next to a freeway where you get some foot traffic, and it's an easy deal to be profitable, man.
Interesting.
Right? It's really easy. And a lot of these dealers are 3rd generation, 4th generation.
Family businesses coming down.
Family business. So they just don't change. Why change? If it works, don't fix it, has kind of been the attitude. But now everybody got punched in the mouth, bro.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun to watch. Now everybody's going, oh, wait a minute, this old model doesn't work anymore. We better grow. So it's been interesting.
That is interesting too, because there's a changing model. I mean, listen, there's a tremendous section of this country that works blue collar industry that are still going to have to physically get to work, right? But there's a lot of this population that's going to go into this new norm of work where it's going to be a lot of working from home, working remotely too. Do you anticipate car sales to go down because people may not have to be commuting as much? They may not be putting wear and tear in their car, as much. They may not be in the need for the market, right? Maybe the secondhand car market might go down. What are you thinking there? What's your professional opinion?
The car sales are going to go up, and they're going to go up dramatically. What's going to go down is rideshare, people using Ubers, Lyfts, things like that. Because now that we have this mentality, this fear of other people and germs and viruses and things like that, people are going to shift back and go, you know what, dude, I want my own car. I know it's clean. I cleaned it myself. There ain't no germs in it.
All right.
I think Uber and Lyft and the ride shares, I think those guys are in trouble.
That's tough, man. I mean, a lot of people shifted their careers, right? A lot of people went to this gig economy and they shifted careers. It's going to go down. I mean, I know personally, I don't know when I'm going to get back into an Uber again. Right. And it's crazy. And that's going to affect where I go and kind of what I do. So, I always like to talk. There's a few professions out there, lawyers, recruiters. I'm a recruiter, and we'll talk a lot about that on your show tomorrow. My kind of career story. Today's about you, and car salesmen, right? We all kind of get a bad rap. We all kind of get rolled into kind of this, some of us are like sleazy snake oil salesmen. Some of us kind of get this bad reputation. And I truly believe across all these industries that it's the bad ones, regardless, that give us good ones like you and I a bad name, right? So how do you stand out, man? Talk to us a little bit about, how do you keep your reputation strong? How do you manage your clients and customers and how you value relationships?
Well, one of the biggest things and the biggest shifts, and I think if people could just get this one very clean, simple concept, it would change everything for them. So most people, when they start a business, this is the mindset, right? We think profit, how can I make money? Then we think, how can I serve my customer so that they'll give me more money? And then we think, how can I get more employees so that I can serve more customers so they'll give me more money, right? That's the typical model when we're building a business. Let's make money, let's get more customers, and then we'll get some employees. I suggest that people shift that upside down, and that's exactly what we did. So what we did in our dealership as we grew is we focused on employees first. How do I create an environment that's amazing for my employees? How do I make sure they're paid well? How do I make sure they're trained and they're growing and they really love their work and everything that they do every day? When we focus on employees first, then what ends up happening is our customers get treated better, which causes them to come back. We get more repeat, we get more referral, right? They go telling their friends about the treatment. And when that happens, guess what? You make profit, you make money. Flip it upside down, man.
That's fundamental.
First.
Right, because if you think about, that translates across any industry that you're talking about, right? When you have a happy employee, right, they're the ambassador to your brand, right? That's going to drive sales. You're not going to have to worry about people leaving you, right? So you're going to reduce attrition across an organization, and it's a fundamental shift, and that translates into the conversations that your employees are having with their customers. No doubt. Dude, you've been in this industry a long time. You could tell when someone's either not right for this business or they're not happy.
Instantly.
Right, instantly, like right away. And that really applies across everything. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about, parenthood, fatherhood, man. 7 kids. Tell us the age range. And if you don't mind, sex, boy, girl, what do you got there? Break it down.
Yeah. So my daughter, Kira, she'll be 21 years old tomorrow. And then there's a big gap. That's the one that I lost custody of her when she was 6. I wasn't in her life until she was 14. But now she's back in my life. So she'll be 21 tomorrow, and then there's a big gap. And then in my house with me and my wife, I have a 10-year-old girl, an 8-year-old boy, a 6-year-old girl, a 4-year-old girl, a 2-year-old boy, and an 18-month-old girl.
Wow, you guys were busy. But so that's a lot. And you mentioned that they're all homeschooled?
Correct. Yep, they sure are.
That's crazy, man. And talk us through, that's Is it kind of like, are you creating like a management team within your own household, right? Is it like kind of top down, like everyone's kind of looking out, picking? It's a team. I mean, you got to. I mean, you're getting close to a football team right now. You're a baseball team level. You've already passed the basketball team. We're past that,
Right.
right?
Right.
Well, first question is you can't play man defense anymore. Once you get past two kids, you're past man defense. Now it's zone, right?
That's
Like you're
right.
straight up zone.
100%. Yeah.
Like, how do you manage that? How do you like ensure? I mean, I got two kids. I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, right? Like, how do you manage like giving your time like equally to these kids? Like, how do you put it out there?
I'll be honest. I don't give my time equally to these kids. I really don't. Each of my kids have their own personalities, their own needs, and the things that serve them best. And so I give my kids what they need, right? Like my son, my 8-year-old son needs a lot of dad. He needs a lot of time with me. He wants to play ball. He wants to do a lot of those things. My 4-year-old Meredith, she tells me every day, I don't like you. This is what she'll give me a hug, she'll give me a kiss, and she'll be like, I don't like you. Peace out. Like she doesn't need as much attention.
Man, 4-year-olds are sassy. That's when they get into their sassy mode, dude.
Yeah, no doubt. So ultimately I just try to serve my kids. I just try to treat each kid like they're the only one. Make them feel special in the way that works for them, that resonates with their soul and with their personality. And I never look at them as a group, right? Like it's not like these are my kids. It's like this is Willow, this is Savannah. They're all individuals in my mind. And luckily, my wife is this is what she was born for. I go to work, I travel a lot. I'm on the road. I'm going to places. I'm working with dealers. I'm doing shows at 5:30 in the morning. Like my wife knows that this is my lane, and I know that that's her lane. And we let each other, do the things that we were made to do, and then we just come together and have each other's back whenever it gets crazy.
I love it, man. I mean that's really what it's all about. I mean, let's talk about that partnership, right? That you have with your wife. I mean, you're balancing a family. You're balancing also keeping your relationship with her, intimate and tight, and keeping that love going. Because I truly believe that our kids look to us, right? And they look to that relationship with their parents. I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, my wife and I are best friends. I mean, except for before when she literally threw me in the doghouse. But generally speaking, not on all days. And I think kids, right? Like kids thrive on that, right? Having a loving household, and then they in turn translate it when it's their time to have a family.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think one of the things that, so my wife and I were very real. Like we're realists. We've both been through it, right? We've been through all the stuff that you could possibly imagine. So we come together now and we don't have any expectations of grandeur or any expectations of the house being perfectly clean or any, we just don't have those expectations. We just take
Not with that many kids.
Yeah, we just take each day and make sure that the kids are safe and that they're being poured into and that they're growing and that they're developing and ultimately that they're smiling, man. That's what it's all about.
No, I agree too. And it's funny too. I got my buddy Gabe, who's a streamer here, just talking to me about the commenting. But let's shift gears a little bit. We got a couple of minutes before my next guest comes on and we can continue this conversation tomorrow. Talk to us about your Facebook show and how the hell did you get that audience so big? I'm just starting with live streaming, man. This is all new to me for a couple of months. Like, when did you start that show? And talk to us about your audience building journey.
Yeah, so we started hashtag Rise and Grind, which I truly believe, that's right, hashtag. I truly believe that if we can change the way people start their day, it'll make a massive impact in their life. I truly believe that. And so the way it kind of got started, it was there was a couple key points behind hashtag Rise and Grind. One, I was tired of all the negativity that's in everybody's Facebook feeds and all of that stuff. And so instead of just complaining about it, I thought, how about I create an environment that's safe, that has nothing but motivation, education, and inspiration. And I'll create that and we'll push that out into the feed. So that was part of the motivation behind it. Also from a marketing standpoint, dude, when you can get on people's minds first thing in the morning when the brain's ready to consume, it's the best time by far. And so when I ran my dealership that I was working at, Dan Cummins Chevrolet and Buick, I used to say every single morning, I'd say, my name is Glenn Lundy. I'm a husband to one, a father to, back then it was 5 or 6 or whoever
the number
many.
changes.
Right. And I'm also the general manager at Dan Cummins Chevrolet and Buick in Paris, Kentucky, the second largest used car franchise dealership in America. It's 5:30 a.m. and I hope you're ready to rise and grind. And so just planting that seed 5:30 a.m. every single day to these listeners. And later in the day, somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a car. And they're like, oh, you should go to Dan Cummins Chevrolet and Buick in Paris, Kentucky, the second largest, right? So from a marketing standpoint, it was great. Mission standpoint, wanting to change the way people start their day, it was great. And I had to do that time because I have so many kids and I didn't want anything to interfere. And so I started going live January 6th of 2018. And now as of today I did my 613th straight episode.
Wow.
Going live Monday through Friday, every day, Monday through Friday for a little over 2 years now.
So we're talking about consistency. So here's the takeaways I'm getting from this. Consistency. Like I do my show at different times, and maybe that's one of the reasons, like one of the things I should concentrate on if I'm going to have a consistent show, whether it's Wednesdays at 3 o'clock, whether it's Saturday mornings at 7 o'clock in the morning before the kids, that people know to tune in versus kind of going all over the place. Number 2 is consistency, right? Let's talk about, dude, 6 every day you're putting in the work. And I'm seeing that too also, right? I'm seeing the more work, the more repetitions that you put into it. I mean, that's awesome. And then it's the message, right? You got that message out there. Right? People know that it's positive, that it's a morning affirmation, that like really getting involved. And that grind is impressive, man. I love it. Talk to us a little bit. Like, how do you engage with the community? How do you keep the conversations going? How do you take that feedback and build it into your show?
Yeah. So I am a firm believer. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, man. I'm a listener. I listen to my audience all of the time. So we started as a show. And then a month later, people were like, we should have our own Facebook group that could be nothing but motivation, education, inspiration. So I created a group. And then a month later, people were like, we need t-shirts that say rise and grind. So I created an entire clothing line. And then people were like, we need events. So then I started putting together events with speakers and things like that. And then people are like, we need to reach out and support others within the group. So we started doing things where we would crowdfund and raise dollars and support other people in the group. So just whatever they're calling for, they were telling me they needed a planner. Everybody was like, man, we're doing this morning stuff, but we need a planner to put it all together. And so I was like, all right, cool. I can make one of those. Yeah. So we made the hashtag Rise and Grind Planner last year in 2019, and we've sold over 3,000 of these guys.
That's a great story. I freaking love it.
Yeah,
Dylan,
man.
I see you there, man.
Just listen to whatever your audience is telling you, man. Whatever they tell you they need.
That's awesome, man. And I love it. I just launched my Facebook group, which is a work in progress. I launched it last week, man. I got about 100 people in there. I'm beefing it up, right? I'm starting with my core fans, my core friends, and I'm just expanding. I mean, this is not my day job. This is not your day job. And I think what people need to understand is this doesn't happen overnight. What you and I are doing is time. You and I are at different stages of our podcasting and live stream career, and I love it, man. So I'm gonna bring on Dylan in a minute here. But I'm going to take a page out of my guest from earlier this week, Steve Noodleberg. I don't know if you know Steve, Confessions of a Serial Salesman. If not, you should definitely connect with him. He's a great, great dude. He does a stand-up every morning. You should definitely check that out. I'll connect you with him. But he left me with something interesting, right? He leads conversations with folks by saying, tell me something good. So I'm going to roll that into my closing kind of question here that I got all my guests, right? Glenn, tell me something good that you've experienced over the last couple of months, man. Tell me a silver lining. Tell me something awesome that's happening in your life.
The best thing that's happened through this entire season is people always move based on emotion, right? Anybody that's in sales knows this. We try to put people in an emotional state so that they'll make a decision. In the car business, we're like, hey, get in the car, put the top down, let the wind go through your hair, feel it, right? We want emotion. And right now, for the first time in the history of the world, you have an entire population of people who are in an emotional state, whether it be they are angry, maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're sad, maybe they're excited, whatever that emotion is, it's different for everybody, but everybody is in an emotional state right now. So that means that you have an incredible opportunity to move people in a positive direction, whether that be for your business, whether that be relationally, whether that be spiritually, if you lead like a church or anything like that. It's just a tremendous opportunity when you have an entire population of people in an emotional state to make an impact in their lives. And so that for me is the best thing. As soon as all this stuff started happening, I got with Sharon, I got with my other people. I'm like, increase my outputs.
Yep.
I want to increase my outputs. I also had to increase my inputs to make sure my brain stayed level. That's why we got off the news and instead we're listening to podcasts and books and audio. Man. Right? Increase those inputs, keep the brain right, increase those outputs, make an impact in people's lives, serve as many as you can, and you'll come out way stronger on the other side of this than you were going in.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Glenn, I'm looking forward to our chat at 5:30 tomorrow morning Eastern time.
Yeah,
where can folks find us tomorrow morning at 5:30 in the morning?
Best thing so tomorrow morning, 5:30, we will be live at Official Glenn Lundy on Facebook, at Official Glenn, and it's 2 N's in Glenn. It's also, if they just need to, if you want to go to glennlundy.com, that will connect you to the Facebook page, the Rise and Grind group, like everything's there. But Adam and I will be live at Official Glenn Lundy tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. on hashtag
Glenn. I am looking forward to that, man. That's gonna be a good one. Glenn, thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna queue up my next guest in a minute here, and I will catch you bright and early tomorrow morning. Rise and Grind with Glenn Lundy tomorrow morning on Facebook Live. Thank you, Glenn.
Sounds good, my man. Take care.
Take care. All right, I'm going to queue up my next guest. But Gabe, if you're still on, I'm going to try this new integration. Dylan, bear with me for a second. This is a live show, and I'm trying something here. So check out this intro. I'm going to play director here for a minute. Look at that. It worked. Great.
Wow. That was awesome. I love
it. Dylan Ali, my man, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, Adam. It is absolutely beautiful. Just enjoying each and every breath of this beautiful experiment that we're all going through right now.
Right. It's just an experiment in life. And to just bring everyone up to speed, Dylan and I have been connected on LinkedIn for a bit. And one of the things that I really like to do is use this live format to have initial conversations. We have yet to talk, face to face. And that's what I use this platform for, right? Like we're gonna connect, we're gonna chat, we're gonna get to know each other a little bit and pull back the curtain. One quick technical thing, if you don't mind doing, if you want to kind of share this out to your audience, you could go into my feed, see the activity, and then hit the share button, and that'll blast to your page, and we can get some of your crew rolled up on here.
Yeah, let me do that real quick.
And you're in Milwaukee, right?
I am in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, land of the Algonquin.
Milwaukee.
I feel like I have to say that every time. That's from Wayne's World, right? Right?
Yes.
And for all you youngins out there, Wayne's World, if you're looking to catch up on movies, if you finish the internet, if you finish Netflixing, and you want to watch some good stuff, there are 2 or 3 Wayne's World. There's 2 Wayne's Worlds. How many Wayne's Worlds are there?
I think there's 2.
There's 2.
I at least lost track after that.
There's at least 2. I don't think they did a good one. Cool. So let's kick things.
Help me out with the technical stuff real quick. Where's my share button?
So if you see my my post, there should be that little arrow that says share.
Oh, on the post. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so if you go to the activity, you'll see the feed kicking up there, and just hit that little share button. It'll go to your page.
Beautiful, gotcha.
We'll get that queued up there in a minute there. So little LinkedIn tricks. People like to have their little tricks all over LinkedIn. So we are streaming on Facebook. We are streaming on YouTube, and it's all good here. So we're good to go. You good to go?
All right, I'm good. Let's roll. I'll figure it out.
Let's kick it up here. Awesome. So I'm thrilled to welcome my second guest here for today. We are on the 14th day of May. Mr. Dylan Ali from the great state of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yes. Right? I didn't say Michigan.
Wisconsin.
No, I'm kidding with everybody. And this is our first connection. So it's interesting because we really haven't had a chance to connect. And I really just want to show people like what it's all about. So I'd love to hear, man, like, who you are, what you do best, what you bring to this world, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. Absolute honor.
Likewise.
Being here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Let me just make sure that I'm good here. I spent, the short version of it is I spent about 20 years in corporate IT sales, about 25 years in sales altogether. And February 6th of this year was my first 100% day as an entrepreneur. It's speaking and coaching has been my side hustle for a few years. And I say it was my side hustle, but the reality was I simply had resistance to going out on my own and doing it. So it was just, going through the journey of releasing and dissolving the fear, the anxiety, and the doubt. And so,
absolutely,
January 13th at 7:01, I heard the word trust in my gut. And that was the beginning of, several weeks later, I was exiting corporate America, jumped into the world of full-time entrepreneurship. And, many would say that the rug was pulled out from under. And I say that the table was set, because, just being in tune with who I am and knowing what I bring to the table. And I think it's fair to say that I bring a very grounding, calming energy around the framework that has proven over and over again to produce good results, whether that is success in your marriage, success in a relationship, your business, your body, your mind, your soul, your health. And, I think the world needs that more than ever right now. So I absolutely am excited about the state of the world and the experiment that we're having right now. I think it absolutely sets the table for so many. And, as energies would align, here I am now getting to share this beautiful dialogue on a platform with someone who has more impact and more reach than I do. And so I'm just enjoying the game.
Yeah, man. And I definitely want to dig into your journey too. I mean, it is still a radio show and we'll get into that in a little bit. So 20 years in corporate America and you had this epiphany. And for me, I mean, when I'll tell you my story in a little bit afterwards, but I had a business moment, which triggered me to launch my own business and stop working for the man and become my own man from a business perspective. And it was a moment. Like I always had that in me. I had the skill set, I had the motivation and the drive. And the second that I started working for myself, it brought out so many traits inside of me, so many passions, so much energy that was only able to be released when I broke through the chains of working for somebody else. And I think what it came down to for me, and if I'm being completely honest and real here, Dylan, for me, it was zero lose. I could not lose. It was zero fail. And I think that type of motivation for me is something that I've always needed. Because when I work for somebody else, or when anybody works for somebody else, there's kind of a safety net there, right? You could get a little lazy. Maybe you could get a little complacent in what you're doing. But when you work for yourself, you're the only one to hold accountable is you. The results are dependent on you. And for me personally, that's what fueled my fire, man. Did you feel any of the same?
I'll share with you my journey. Absolutely.
Love to hear it.
How does that make you feel when you say that?
Powerful.
Yeah.
Empowered.
Yeah. What else?
Confident. Strong.
That's really, really empowering. But the silent killer in that is could potentially be the need to prove someone else wrong, the need to get away from the man, the need to move away from something versus being pulled to something. So for me, I could have left corporate years and years ago. The reality is that I am not night and day difference in the way that I articulate. So my speaking really isn't night and day difference, and my coaching style isn't night and day difference. So it had nothing to do with adding more skill set. It was releasing the fear, the anxiety, and all of the things that drove me to success. I love, one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill talks about transmuting desires into reality, and the secret sauce behind that is emotion. And so the beautiful thing about it is that energy is energy. So the universe doesn't care if it's love or fear. And I built an amazing career in corporate out of fear of not being enough, not being worthy, not loving myself, not loving others. And I can keep going on and on and on. And, my top year in corporate was 312, right? I started my corporate journey at 32,000, right? So for me, I would say I was successful.
Yeah.
Now and I only paint those numbers to create a correct picture, right? And the picture is that I found success, but that was fueled in fear. And, I'm giving a talk here in a couple of weeks, and the guy sent me over and he said, "What are you going to talk about?" And I said, "I don't know." And I thought, and my talk is going to be the empathetic entrepreneur. And so many of us that step into this space of entrepreneurship, we are running away from something. We are doing this to prove others wrong. We are doing this for acceptance of who I am. Well, I have to ask you this, is that love or fear-based?
Yeah, that's
Right?
a very true. And you pose an interesting question too. And I'll be honest, like everyone's journey into entrepreneurship is different, right? Like,
Mhm.
some people have it in them forever and then they kind of morph
Right.
into it, right? And for me, it was circumstance based. And I do agree with you. I think early stage, when I launched my own business, there was a period where I wanted to prove everybody wrong. I completely agree with that, right? I mean, there was definitely part of me that said, like, fuck you. You didn't think I could do this. I'm going to be able to do this on my own. And then as time went on and I was able to look in that rear view mirror, I would say, that really wasn't it, man. No. I've had this in me forever, man. And it was just that moment that unlocked the door. And that really was the impetus behind everything. And the mindset, everything has shifted over the last 3 years for me from having this own business. It's changed the way I handle relationships. It's the way I create, my creative side of me too, my passion. And really it came down to being honest with myself. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your kind of coaching philosophy, because one thing that I do, and I am not a professional coach by trade, but I do spend a lot of time talking to candidates and friends. And I talk about, you need to be honest with yourself before you could even get into this kind of work here. You can't be lying to yourself. You have to be honest. And that's hard for people to get to. How do you help people get to the point of being at a good level of honest and open with their own selves?
So I'll use my own journey again as the example, right? The proof is in the pudding. And again, I could have jumped a couple of years ago and worked through that fear, right? But I also made a commitment to myself that I was going to start the foundation in love, because I knew what I could build out of fear. And I just had this silly theory that I'm testing, because I am still building, right? I'm still in the elementary stages of it. But I said, okay, let me get there. Now, how did I dissolve that? Well, number one, it's like you said, I think you have to speak your truth and be honest with yourself. And before there's anything else, before even commitment, there's discipline. Right. And so I say, don't lead with a stick, don't lead with a carrot, lead with both. Lead with both, right?
What do you mean?
Have the discipline, but wrap that discipline in grace. And for me, it was going through the processes of aligning my energy, aligning my heart, aligning my mind, aligning my body. And so with my clients, I take them through the same thing. We create a framework along those pillars, and we align it in the direction of whatever the set goal is, right? Now, I don't have to wake up to an alarm anymore. My vision pulls me out of bed, right? I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go digging. I don't have to go looking for information. It literally just comes to me. And for me, it was simply back to the thing that I always talk about, removing resistance. When resistance shows up, I acknowledge it, I accept it, I allow it. And the lesson typically looks like dissolving fear, dissolving anxiety, dissolving some sort of emotional trauma, something that tied me to something that no longer serves me. And now we work through that with a framework. And the breath, for me, the foundation of my framework is breath and meditation. That's kind of the thing that people know me for, right? And so we use that, and I teach people how to use that to clear the noise. You ever wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and you can't turn it off, right? How do we get to that state where I wake up and I'm not on repeat of yesterday?
It's hard. Your mind's always going.
Your mind's always going. And here's what I say. The quality of your breath is the quality of your feelings. The quality of your feelings is the quality of your thoughts. The quality of your thoughts is the quality of your words and actions in reality. So it's back to breath.
Yeah. And I just started a breathwork practice about 7-8 months ago through some yoga that I was doing, and it transformed everything. And I'm smirking and laughing because you talk about getting up in the middle of the night. One of my biggest struggles was my brain does not stop, nor does my mouth, but my brain does not stop. And I think a lot of people, when they get up in the middle of the night and it's subconscious dreams and subconscious thoughts of what's happening in your day, what's happening in your life that keep going. And you need to figure out techniques and tricks to slow your mind down. And for me, it really came down to breathing, going through those breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And it really worked. Yeah. If you're looking on your phone there, it's about a 5-second delay. So you want to drop the volume on that one. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
I'm trying to throw it up right now. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about spirituality. And I think that's something that, I've observed through your content that you're putting out on LinkedIn. I'd love to get some insight into what drives you on the spiritual side that is, probably a major foundation of your life and your business and your coaching practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it was, I'm 46, and I tell the story often that, back when I was 18 or 19 or so, waiting tables, actually 18, right? Before I went to work as a prison guard. That's a different story.
Oh, we could save that for
Yes,
another
we
podcast.
save that. That's another good one. But I literally was rolling around in my Mustang with two 12s in the back. And when I wasn't bumping Milli Vanilli and, Vanilla Ice, it was Tony Robbins' Personal Power Series on
Classic.
cassette,
All classics.
right?
All those are
All
classics. Tony
classic.
Robbins to Vanilla Eyes.
Yes.
For all you youngins
And
out
so,
there.
and
I'm not much younger
so,
than you.
and so through my journey, there was always that self-development from a mindset perspective. And it was about, 4 years ago, I hit a record year, and, I was looking for ways to crack that next 1% to 2%, right? And I looked and looked and looked. And like I said, there were not enough hours in the day to work anymore. And I'd fought this thing about spirituality, back in my 20s and 30s when I would go see a counselor or something like that. They would always tell me that I was, that I had a spiritual nature about me. And that was the last thing I wanted to hear at that age. And I ran from it. And so it was that intuition that just popped up one day and said, take a look at this. And then it slowly started shifting inward. And I just got still and I got quiet. And I started asking questions, and I started, working with soul coaches and energy coaches and astrologers. And, I'm fortunate my wife is a shaman. So, getting to work with her and just really just seeking. And I'm a Gemini, so that's what Geminis do, right? We seek and
Always seeking.
we're always looking. So,
being inquisitive is one of the core traits of Gemini.
Right. And even having an association with, quote unquote, being scatterbrained and changing that conscious language, right? To say, okay, and recognize that I sought out what the stars mean. And to me, this is just how a Gemini is wired. So now I know that from the outside looking in, if I'm juggling 10 projects and it looks chaotic, that's actually Dylan's world. That's actually where I'm thriving. Now, the flip side of that is you could go head on to a project and all of a sudden just cut the cord and go, that's not me. And that would look like wishy-washy from the outside, but also recognizing that I am a manifesting generator, which means one of two things. I can sit, align my energy and allow it to come to me. Or if I just get tired of waiting, I can literally just put my nose down and accomplish anything that I want. Right.
Like
that becomes a crazy balance as well. So for me, the spiritual nature of things is this. They say that we use 10% of our mind, right? That's the conscious mind. So the greater percentage of us, that is 90%, is non-physical. Now, you may call that the subconscious mind. You may call that God. You may call that the universe. You may call that spirit. I call it all of the above. If I can be in tune with that 90% of me that we typically don't touch, that says, from a business perspective, I now have an advantage.
Well, it's an advantage, yeah.
Absolutely. From a relationship standpoint, I have an advantage. Basically, it's me on the juice, right? It's literally me tapping into something that
it's your own juice.
Don't have. And that's the key. It's your own juice.
How do you access that?
That is through work. I mean, here's the thing.
Happens. No switch.
Well, here's the thing, right? What is your degree in?
My degree is just getting by in college. I have a communications degree, which is AKA for just get the hell out and we'll take your money.
Well, you are one rung up the ladder than I, because I did not finish college. So I don't have a degree. But that communications degree you will take with you to your grave, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Can't take it away. You earned it. Now, here's the thing. How do you get to that place? You work on it every day, because I am only the master of dialing up yesterday. So every day I have to put it into work. And through my own work, I've created the framework that works for me. And that's the key thing. It works for me. Hashtag Dylan's world. It's just what works for me. And all I'm doing is simply giving you a glimpse into it. But, we are creatures of habit. We are what we repeatedly do. So it's back to creating new habits. And how do I create new habits? Number one, I've got to get still and quiet. I've got to recognize and take inventory of the habits that are there. So you have to be just brutally honest with yourself, right? And when you accept, then you allow it to flow through you. But first, you have to acknowledge it. So have the discipline to sit down and look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm feeling like a piece of shit right now, but that's okay. That's a good starting point. Now, how do I get to the other side of that? And then it's simply just walking yourself through it, right? Acknowledging where you are and recognizing that I'm not a POS. I'm simply thinking that in this moment.
Right.
Well, the reality is that we identify with the clouds, and the reality is behind the clouds is the blue sky, and that is who we truly are.
I dig it,
And
man.
so as we let those clouds pass by, that thought of me being a piece of S, right? I accept it and I go, that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm feeling. Okay. That is a feeling. That is not me. Okay. Am I a piece of shit? Yeah, I did something pretty bad. Okay, I'm a piece of shit. I'm good. All right, let it go. Boom. Right? And you recognize that in that moment, that's what you felt. It's not who you are. And then you just do that over and over and over again.
Yeah. There's a big difference there between how you feel and what you are. And I think that's something
Absolutely.
that's hard for a lot of people because they manifest it, right? And I'm smirking too, going back to what we were talking about before. And this is, I think, where we're aligned. I could do something very similar. I could manifest. And I've been saying this word manifest for the last 3 years since I went out on my own. Like, I think about what I want. I think about the goals and I envision it. I envision it happening. And then I put my nose to the grind and I make it happen. Right. And I think those things need to kind of work in conjunction to really make it happen. Right. You need to have the mindset and you need to have the hustle and grind. That's number one. My question to you is, and this is something that I've been working on hard, is blocking out the noise. There's lots of noise in our life. There's lots of distractions, and there's some distractions which are good and important. And then there's some distractions where literally bullshit noise that we focus on, that negative energy. How do you block that out? And I apologize before, it's what's the correct pronunciation of your first name?
It's Dylan.
Dylan.
Like it sounds like you're dialing a phone.
Dylan, I apologize.
Yeah.
So getting back to that question, how do you block out the noise?
That exercise that we just did, you apologize for not recognizing that my name is Dylan, not Dylan. You simply don't care, right? And here's how you work backwards on that. One of the mantras that I've said, thousands of times by now is, don't know, I don't care, it doesn't matter. And I've said that in the theta state or close to that theta state as part of my morning ritual. So it goes directly to my subconscious. And now, because it's played over and over and over again, right? That subconscious, we are what we repeatedly do. So the subconscious now has a new language. So now, for example, let's use real life. Right now, COVID-19 hit and everyone's freaking out. And my response is, I don't know, I don't care, it doesn't matter. Now, because I can block that noise out, now I can move forward. Now I can recognize, what's draining my energy. I can adjust there, where the business opportunities are, right? Blah, 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 blah. But how do you get there? It's through creating the new habits. And so the framework is simple. Number one, when I wake up in the morning, I control the day from day one. I do not rely on an alarm clock to wake me up. Now, before there's that commitment, there's discipline. So before that, you've got to use the alarm clock. So be tactical. Use the alarm clock to get you up within those early morning hours when everyone else is asleep. Yes, you're fucking tired. I'm tired too. But do it. That's the thing. You got to have that discipline to do it.'t when you wake up, 86% of us, the first thing we do is we grab this.
Guilty as charged.
Yep, we grab that. So now we're thinking other people's thoughts before we even get our head clear.
Right.
How do you do it?
We're planting those seeds in our head. We're like,
Absolutely.
we're adding toxicity to the day. You have a brand new slate every single day. You're starting with this shit right here. Exactly.
Now, let me ask you this, Adam. How many times have you gotten up and in your mind, when you wake up, are you married?
Yep.
Yep.
Married, 2 kids. Yep.
There you go. So in your mind, when you wake up, are you continuing the argument from last night or the, damn it, little Johnny or little Susie didn't do this and they pissed me off? So it's continuing, right? So when we wake up, for me, it's owning that day. And the first thing that I do is when I sit up, and this is a Tony Robbins tactic that I followed for years, gratitude for 3 things. I sit up, take a big deep breath, I drink a chug of water, I move my spine, and I give gratitude for 3 things. Now, when you're in that state of gratitude, you cannot be in anger, you cannot be in anxiety and fear. So the story from yesterday just kind of stops. Now, when I move into breath work and when I move into meditation, I basically use the breath work to clear the noise in my head, as you know from doing breath. When I get into that meditative state, when I can't feel my nose and my toes and I'm flying high, right? In that theta state, in that receptive state, that's where I do my visualization. That's when you talk about manifesting. That's when I feel it. Because when I feel it, then it's sunken into my subconscious. Now, when I use the affirmations of I am love, I am enough, I am worthy, I am love, I am enough, I am worthy, it sinks into my subconscious. So now as I go through and I do it repeatedly, it becomes part of my inner dialogue. And now my conscious language, and instead of stubbing my toe and going, fuck, Dylan, you idiot, why'd you do that? I stubbed my toe and I said, thank you, sweet baby Jesus, good Lord, that I didn't break my toe. And I move on, right? Because it doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I have no expectations of any results.
That's a good
one. The
one.
universe is always conspiring for me, not against me. Our inner dialogue is so key to our outer world. And the process that I just explained is the process that I use for myself. It's my own dog food. I eat my own dog food.
You got it.
My clients. And that's how we create shift. And that's how we create pivot. And that's how we let go of those things that no longer serve us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, a shift for me too was the mindset changing that life happens for me, not to me. And that was something that was an epiphany a couple of years ago, and it shifted everything. It shifted my mindset. It shifted understanding all these things that are happening in my universe are there for a reason. And I think when we're talking about COVID, if we're going to talk about current events right now, I love it. My brother has that same one, man. I mean, that will literally the size of that water, man. Like it's going to force you. I drink, I mean, just for convenience, I probably fill this thing up here about 10 times a day. My wife calls me a camel, which is because I like to hump. No, she. This is a family friendly show here, everybody. You know, but mindset is everything, right? And so I want to talk a little bit, you know, we could continue this conversation. I know we're very one-sided here talking about you, which is awesome. Like, let's talk about, you know, that shift and how you use LinkedIn as a platform to tell your story, to attract clients, right? Like, let's talk a little bit about your LinkedIn story.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story started off a couple of years ago where, you know, in the hustle of the corporate world, once a quarter I get to corporate and I do a training or something like that. Now it'll load up my calendar with executive one-on-one. And that, you know, that became a song and a dance. And so something clicked and said, if I just showed those intangible pieces of me that the KPIs don't show, it would save me the noise of sitting in the office and, oh, hey, you married, you have kids, you play golf, what do you like, blah, blah, blah. And if I can set the tone, because Dale Carnegie 101 says people buy from people they like.
Yep.
So if I can set the tone there, then I can alleviate some of that back and forth and I can create a relationship. And it worked great. But then I just started sharing a little bit more of my authentic self. And I started through my process, removing the covers. And then I simply just said, listen, this resonates in real life with my clients. It resonates in real life with my leadership team and my peers. I am the guy that people come to. And so why not try to share something different? Because every post you can find on LinkedIn is teaching you how to 10x your business or get to the 2 comma club or how to increase your following and this and that and the other. And I simply just wanted to provide something that most people are not willing to talk about. And the social proof was there because that type of dialogue was not on LinkedIn.
I agree.
And I think, you know, the traction that I got on LinkedIn was just kind of the perfect storm, right? I mean, literally, this is what I'm wearing today. And so, you know, I'm not out and about, I'm not in meetings, but, you know, when I shot my content, I showed how I presented myself, just like today, it's real. I'm presenting myself, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And so I have a little bit of flair with style and I have a way that I articulate words and my words resonated. And it was just kind of a perfect storm that it just took traction. And that's why I say, man, COVID didn't happen to me. It happened for me because right now, I really believe that people want a message of love, inspiration, motivation, hope. And, you know, 6 months ago, man, good luck. Try to get on a stage being a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
There were memes against motivational speakers, right?
Talk about the saturation.
And so I just know that, number one, that's what the world desires right now. Number two, there's a ton of competition. There is no competition because no one can do Dylan Ali And that just comes from me recognizing and knowing who I am, what my mission is, and what value it is that I bring. And you can't know your light unless you know your shadows. And so for me, I know both sides of the coin. And I think I know that's why people resonate with me, is because part of that gift, part of that thing that I'm feeding is the ability to resonate and the ability to feel that energy and give that energy back. And I think that really just allows people and enables people to be in a state of vulnerability.
Yeah. And
And when
authenticity
we
shines,
can be
man.
that, absolutely. It's not a buzzword. It's becoming a buzzword.
No, and it's hard too because I
Yeah,
preach authenticity, and it's
yeah.
hard because I feel like it's one of those, because I talk a lot of shit about buzzwords like
Mhm.
culture and other things like personal branding. There's a lot of buzzwords out there, but
Yep.
authenticity is something that's been around for a long time. It's not a buzzword, and it's real,
Right.
and you could feel it. And I feel like it's tough because a lot of people, right, when your brand shines, like I could feel it and I could see it, but I think a lot of people struggle, and I'm not trying to talk shit, like they don't know what their brand is, and they're looking to other people and they're emulating it, and they're saying, well, I see that person being successful, I'm going to try to take a little bit of that. And being inspired is okay, right? I think being inspired is
Yes.
important, and if it brings that out of you where you could find your own authenticity. But I think people really need to focus on being their true self, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's what's going to come through. We know when something's not authentic. It's tough,
Absolutely.
but I am
But
empathetic to those people that are in the struggle to find it. Right. I'm not going to shit on them all
absolutely.
day because everyone has their own journey and their own story and they got to find it. But don't ride. I can't stand when people like, all right, this is working for somebody else, I'm going to ride it and try to capitalize on it. That's short term.
Well, and that's the thing, is you cannot fake authenticity. Authenticity is not a word. It's not something you do. It's what you are, right? And here's the reality of things. You can fake words, but you can't fake energy. And energy travels way faster than
Oh, yeah.
words or thoughts. So before you and I ever even spoke words to each other, you wouldn't have had these spoken words with me if you didn't feel an energy and a connection here, right?
Yeah.
So energy is real. And I think that, once you're in alignment with that, you don't have to use those words. And I consciously choose to not use that word, right? Because there's a lot of good psychology behind that conscious language. And so when you are living from that space, you don't have to use it. You don't have to paint a picture. You can show up in a tie-dye. You can show up in a suit. You can show up looking like $1 million or looking the opposite. And it's not about what you look, and really not even about what you say. It's about the energy that you bring, because energy is so important.
It's so true, man. And I think there's some people that kind of laugh, and it's funny too. I mean, we really didn't get into my story too. I have a pretty deep, spiritual side. I mean, that's something you and I could talk about offline, not on the air. We could talk about some fun stuff that I like to do to harness that. But it's really about a feeling. Like if we take the word energy and replace it with a feeling, right? It's how do you feel when you meet somebody? How do you feel when you talk to somebody? Right? Does someone have an agenda? Do they have like ill intentions? Right? Are you kind of aligned to? And it's okay too if two people are not so much aligned as far as their message, but at least they're being respectful and honest, and you feel like you're really talking to somebody's true self on the other side too. Right. And I think that's what it's about. And it's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to not be on the same page with things too. But when it comes down to is the vibe there from an energy and authenticity standpoint? I mean, that's just my thoughts.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, listen, I think I'm a pretty fucking cool dude, but how boring would the world be if it was all Dylan Ali? I'd go nuts, right?
Well, that would be the norm. Well, that would be
Yeah.
I mean, if it's all the same,
It'd be
right?
so
I mean,
boring. It would be boring, right? There'd be no excitement, no
tie-dye would be
contrast.
gray. Tie-dye would be the new gray.
And I think that's a beautiful thing in ego. I don't strive to dissolve or kill ego. I am ego. I need ego. Trust me. If you're in a dark alley at night and it's you and your wife and kids and someone's got a knife or gun, I'm sorry, buddy, but we're going home. You're not.
Yeah.
I still love you, and I recognize you're coming from a place of fear, but I'm going home, right? So I am ego. But I think once you can live in that delicate dance and balance of ego and self, or ego and soul. Go ahead.
No, but I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to put a thought in when you're done here. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
But ego is also drive, right? In a good way. Like if you look at the positive, how do you harness the good? Because ego sometimes gets a bad rap.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I am ego, so I want it all, because guess what? In a moment, I can say something pretty dickish, and I can judge someone. I absolutely can. But in the next moment, I can come back to my breath and then be like, okay, I recognize that judgment on that person is simply a reflection. And then I go through a process of dissolving that. And so I'm learning in that moment. So guess what? If I don't fuck up, I don't grow.
Fill up.
Right? So we
Story of
think
my
of
life,
that as a
man.
bad thing. We think of it as a bad thing, but no. And so guess what? Ego is the thing that drives me, but then love is the thing that allows me to fail. So I push and then I fail. I push and then I fail. I allow that energy behind me, that good juju, that good drive to just get that wind beneath my sail. So ego is the momentum. Love is the inspiration.
That's right. What kind of music are you into, man?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me. What would you think?
Well, this is a tough one because now I'm putting on my. Did you ever watch Pee Wee's Playhouse when you were a kid? And he had this,
I do remember it.
He had this genie called Jambi, so I'm gonna put my Jambi hat on, and I'm gonna.
Love it.
I think you got a mix here, man, because it's tough. Because this is pure guessing here, man.
Do it.
I definitely think there's a heart and soul of classic rock in there somewhere. I feel like you have a foundation and maybe some of the like the good stuff, right? We're talking like the Floyds and the Zeppelins of the world, a little bit of Beatles in there too. I also think by your reference from Vanilla Ice and stuff, there's also some of that classic hip hop in there too. I feel like you're more of an East Coast hip hop guy if I'm gonna throw it out there. I think there might be a little Wu-Tang in there somewhere. And then let's throw in a little bit of some new age shit, right? I mean, there could be some like maybe a little Radiohead, right? Maybe a little of like that indie punk kind of stuff too. I don't know. Am I spot on with any of that?
No, man. You're dialed in there pretty good. So I'm an East Coast kind of guy. Listen, I really value my angry gangster rap, right? My DMX.
But I also the best, man.
Yes, but I also love that West Coast, Snoop flow. So I do love both coasts. That is my genre, gangster rap, if you will, right? Hip hop. I love old school hip hop, but I also love, you talk about the classics, man. Again, I'm 46, so middle school was all about the hair bands for me. And again, we talk about emotional ties and emotional traumas, but there's also those emotional great memories too, right?
Well, there's one question.
Music always brings me back.
There was one question I should have asked before I talked about your music. I didn't even ask you, where'd you grow up? Are you from Milwaukee?
No. So I am from Trinidad. I was born in Trinidad, down in the islands. We moved to the States when I was 8. Okay. Landed in New York City, Bronx in 1981.
Oh, cool.
Headed down to Texas the year after, and I grew up in Texas.
All right.
Until moving up here 6 years ago or so.
Yeah, Texas is weird to kind of put your finger on musically, right? I mean, the whole spectrum there. I mean, if you're putting like the demographics on it, that's crazy. Like I'm a New Yorker, born and raised, man. Like born in Brooklyn, lived there till I was 13. We're out in the burbs in Long Island now. I'm a New Yorker, so I grew up with like East Coast hip hop. I grew up with like classic rock. I'm 41, so a couple years younger than you. So I was more like, when you say Vanilla Ice was the first CD I've ever purchased, and it came. Right. Do you remember they used to come in those big long cardboard boxes?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I remember it. That was my first ever CD. And I was like cherish that shit. And I remember I had this kind of Sony boom box that split into 2 different speakers.
Oh, yeah.
I had on my counter there.
The original surround sound.
But music, drives you. Music is everything. I mean, when I do my work, I'm really into deep house, right? And it just gives me a vibe to when I'm working, and it gets me in that groove.
Yeah.
I am so much more efficient and productive. I mean, I talk on the phone all day long as a recruiter, but when I'm in the trenches and I'm doing my work, right? When I'm doing my work, I need to have a groove. I need to have a vibe behind me, man. So let's wrap this up here, man, because we've been chatting for a little bit. I certainly want to continue this conversation. I appreciate you and your time. And let's certainly find some synergies and keep this flow going. I'm going to be doing this live show throughout, so maybe I'll get you back on in a few weeks and we can continue the conversation. But I want to end things here on a super positive note. And this is a question I wrap up every single one of when I do the full podcast. I don't know if you had a chance to catch any of them, but something that's critical and important in everything I do in my life is my North Star. It's what I align to. It's my drive. And for me, my North Star is my 2 kids. It's the reason I do everything. Everything that I do, the reason I do things the right way, ethically, above the law, right? Or within the law, right? It depends on the day, right? But everything I do is for my kids. Dylan, what is your North Star?
we. The mere fact that we are not just two on this call conversation right now, we are everyone that's tuned in and everyone that will tune in. And for me, I recognize my mission is to contribute to that oneness. The closer we can all get to that oneness is the way that we do dissolve the ego, because then the ego is no longer needed. And so for me, my mission through everything, even in the role that I play a father and husband, is simply moving towards that oneness. So I would say that every moment is a new reality. Just find that breath, come back to the present moment, give gratitude for where you are, and recognize that we are all one.
I love it, my man. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
Absolutely. This platform has been amazing to me. So find me here on LinkedIn, Dylan Ali. You can find me at dylanali.net. That gives you an update on everything that's going on. And so I'm so grateful for this time and space with you, brother. Thank you.
Awesome. Likewise. And we'll keep this conversation going. And everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us this week on the Podcast Live. Sneak preview, I am doing something a little bit different. I'm switching the show up moving forward. We're not going to be doing this every single day. We're going to do something kind of fun next week. We're going to do a late night with the podcast. I'm going to switch it up. We're going to do a late night show that's coming at everybody 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday night. I'll be announcing that lineup shortly. And then I will have Heather Monahan on with me next Thursday, the great Heather Monahan. We're going to have a pretty awesome chat. And then we're going to switch the format up a little bit more. The following week, I have former head of global talent at McDonald's, David Fairhurst, joining me for. We're going to dig into diversity and inclusion. We're going to get back to some recruiting conversations. Dylan, hang with me for one moment. Everyone watching us at home and catching us on the replay. This will be up on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all those other channels. Catch us always on the podcast.com, all the social media channels, blah, 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 blah. You know where to find us, all that kind of good stuff. Take care. Look out for your fellow man. Wash your hands. We'll get back to hugging and kissing soon because we need it. Right, Dylan? We need that physical fucking connection. I want to hug my friends. I want to hug them.
Yes.
I think we're fine, man. I think we're going to be okay for the most part, right? Like, let's get the show on the road.
We're always taken care of.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us, Dylan. Hang with me for 1 second as I sign off. Take care, everybody. And that's how we do the